OSCE Forum on Language Compliance. Many thanks for joining us here today. We have two very distinguished panels here for you, and the OSCE is extremely grateful for their participation. We hope you will find the presentations interesting and that further initiatives will be developed here for multilingual functioning of institutions and public life in Kosovo. Without further ado, let's proceed with the planned agenda. The first speaker on behalf of the organizer is Ambassador Jan Bratu, the head of the OSCE mission in Kosovo. Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Senad. Good morning to everyone, and special good morning to Honorable Prime Minister Haradinaj, Honorable Deputy Prime Minister Jevtic, dear Ambassador Zanier, dear Ambassador Fundlid, dear ambassadors, dear ministers, members of the government, judiciary, language commissioner, and ombudsperson, ladies and gentlemen. I'm extremely pleased to be here with you this morning for the Forum on Language Compliance in Kosovo. The OSCE mission in Kosovo highly appreciates the presence of Prime Minister Haradinaj, Deputy Prime Minister Jevtic, Ambassador Fundlid, Language Commissioner Mladenovic, and our distinguished guests who will share the experience from the multilingual jurisdictions of Canada, Switzerland, Finland, and Belgium. A special welcome to Assistant Deputy Minister of Justice Wright for coming the long way across the big ocean to be with us and to share some positive Canadian experiences on language issues. I'm especially pleased to have the OSCE High Commissioner on National Minorities, Ambassador Lamberto Zanier, surely a well-known and highly respected figure here in Kosovo. And him coming here during the first months of his mandate as OSCE High Commissioner speaks volumes about the importance that our organization, the OSCE, attaches to this topic. Multiculturalism and multilingualism have been part of Kosovo's reality for centuries. Since the old times, it was not strange for neighbors to converse in different languages. Historically, communities in such old towns as Vuštri, Prizren, Gjilan, and also here in Pristina, have lived side by side and have learned and spoken each other's languages. This multilingualism is rooted in the culture. It is a valuable asset and it enriches society. Given its multicultural history, it's perhaps no surprise that Kosovo's legal framework is one of the most advanced in Europe when it comes to language rights and protection of language rights. And this is something we believe to be cherished and to be promoted. Kosovo has two official languages, and by the way, English is not one of them. And Albanian and Serbian have the same status before the law. That means that both language versions of the law are equal. This is what the legal framework of Kosovo says. In addition, in Prizren, in Gjilan, in Mitrovica, Vuštri, Turkish has the status of an official language, and in municipalities where at least 5% of the population speak a non-majority language, then that language also has the status of an official language in that municipality. Thus, the Romani language is in official use in Gračanica municipality, and Bosnian has the status in Peja, in Prizren, in Istok, and Dragaš. Even in municipalities where 3% of the population speaks a non-majority language, they are entitled, according to the law, to use to their linguistic rights. These language rights, I hasten to add, apply not only in Kosovo Albanian majority municipalities, but also in Kosovo Serb and Turkish majority municipalities. It applies equally throughout. However, overall implementation of this advanced legal framework is incomplete, and this is what brings us here today. We are here to support local institutions in implementing the legal framework that you have put in place. The high-level representation in the room today proves the true commitment of all of you to discuss this topic and also your readiness to overcome the challenges to implementation. One of the issues that we and other stakeholders have pointed out is that there are discrepancies between the different language versions of official documents and laws. This is despite the fact that both languages are equal and equally official. This leads to confusion when, for example, a judge is faced with two language versions of the same law, both equally applicable, but that say different things. This also undermines citizens of their rights to access to justice when they are unable to actually understand their rights or the law in an official language. We believe there are two immediate steps that can facilitate the implementation of the language-related legal protections. The first is adopting a language strategy, and the second is to create a fast-track legal basis for correcting discrepancies in the laws. The draft language strategy has not yet been approved. One of its recommendations is creating a central translation cell. This would bring the translators and resources that are distributed now throughout the ministries into one place and would improve internal capacity. We are therefore extremely encouraged by the importance that Prime Minister Haradinaj has attached to this matter. His commitment has led to significant movement with respect to a centralized translation cell, and we welcome this positive development very much. We look forward to the adoption of the language strategy and continue to work in the meantime on addressing language discrepancies in the legal framework. Last year, the OSCE mission in Kosovo provided the Ministry of Justice with revised Serbian language versions of the Criminal Code and Criminal Procedure Code. We know the translations of these codes have been problematic for courts and lawyers. We have also facilitated the review of 7 laws and amendments to 2 of them, important for the functioning of the judiciary, and identified 49 substantive errors in the Serbian language versions of these laws. Let me give one example. The Albanian language version of the law on execution of penal sanctions refers to the, quote, suspension of the execution of a penal sanction. However, the word suspension is incorrectly translated into Serbian as the word termination. These are 2 very different words. But it's work in progress, and we are working together with you in order to identify what needs to be corrected and to provide corrections. We are now working to prepare corrected versions of all these laws, which we will provide to the government of Kosovo. However, even once we have corrected translations, right now the only process available to bring these into the legal framework is to send the law in question back to the Assembly of Kosovo as a full amendment. There needs, we believe, to be a fast-track process for putting corrections in place. Surely it would not make sense to send every correction through the full amendment process. As we sit here today, some of your colleagues, legal directors representing different views and interests, are gathered in Tirana for a consultative workshop supported by my mission, where they are finalizing the draft law on normative acts. The draft law on normative acts provides a legal basis for a fast-track correction process for translation mistakes that are in the existing legal framework. We are therefore looking forward to the subsequent speedy approval of this draft law. This is essential because of the equal validity of the Serbian language version of laws. That means that they are treated exactly the same as the Albanian language version in a court of law. This is particularly important now at a time when the judiciary is integrated. A successful and sustainable integration will require all of the laws to be fully understandable and mean the same thing in both Serbian and Albanian languages. Ladies and gentlemen, part of this Kosovo reality involves learning the language of your neighbors, whatever that language is, whether it is the majority or the non-majority language. People who live together need to communicate with one another. This is essential in order to avoid misperceptions and stereotypes, and also to building valuable intercultural relations and trust. But it's also important for business. Knowing your neighbors' languages is essential to economic prosperity and integration. And it is not simply, by the way, a Kosovo reality. It is actually a European reality. As every European can attest, we need to know our neighbors' languages, and English is not enough. It is important to have access to and knowledge of the language that your immediate neighbors speak, not just a common third language. Why? Well, because language is one of the ways in which we get a window into each other's culture and mindsets. We understand each other better when we communicate with each other's languages. And this facilitates a deeper understanding. And that's a European value. Already in Kosovo, we see that today Bosnian is an official language in Prizren, Dragaš, and Peja, and that Turkish is also an official language in Mamusha. This is also reflected among school children, both primary and secondary, who are educated in the different languages. Based on our estimations, OSCE estimations, over 2,700 children attend school in the Turkish language, and over 4,000 in the Bosnian language. In addition, according to NGO Arkiv, representatives of which are here today, another 17,000 school children study in Serbian language. It is important that children have access to languages and are encouraged to learn them. Throughout the years, the OSCE mission in Kosovo has played, and we continue to play, we believe, an important role in the protection and promotion of language rights of all communities in Kosovo. Indeed, we have supported the establishment of the Office of the Language Commissioner and continue to work to advance and strengthen that office. Thanks to the Austrian chairmanship, represented here today by Ambassador Fandler, the Language Commissioner recently participated in an informal meeting in Vienna with participating state representatives prior to the Permanent Council meeting of the OSCE. That was an important step, and it was an important meeting. We are pleased that the Language Commissioner is here today and will be moderating the panel of speakers from multilingual jurisdictions, including Assistant Deputy Minister of Justice from Canada, Ms. Laurie Wright, Ambassador Jean-Hubert Lebet of Switzerland, Ambassador Anna Huhtamäki from Finland, and Mr. Jean-Louis Servet from the Diplomatic Office of Belgium. Thank you for being with us today. These speakers come from countries where in some cases there are even policy incentives in place to promote multilingualism. The Canadian government, for example, offers a bilingualism bonus, so that people who work in government get an additional payment if they pass the test proving that they are bilingual. Well, I know the Minister of Finance would not like to hear that suggestion, but it's an idea worth considering. It provides an incentive, and it tells us that multilingualism has real benefits to countries, including, if I may mention, social cohesion and the capacity to compete globally and to have that extra economic advantage. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for being with us to promote a valuable common goal, that of advancing multilingualism and multiculturalism. And I wish you all a very successful day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. As I mentioned earlier, our panels here today are extremely distinguished, and we are very grateful to the Prime Minister of Kosovo, Mr. Ramush Haradinaj, for accepting our invitation to speak at this forum. Mr. Prime Minister, the floor is yours.
Mirëmëngjes, dobro jutro. Good morning. It's Günaydın as well. The Honorable Ambassador Brathu, the host of this very important meeting. Ambassador Zanieri, thank you for being back home in Kosovo. Ambassador Founder, Deputy PM Jeftic, Commissioner Mladenovic, Commissioner of Languages, dear ambassadors, Head of Constitutional Court, President, State Prosecutor Lumezi, all you colleagues, ministers. It's nice being together today in a, I would say, very fruitful commitment. And I first want to thank partners, OSCE, national governments, friends from Canada. It's very nice that you made your way to here to be with us. But every contributor that helps Kosovars to regain something that in the past it was, let's say, our pride. We was able to communicate with each other in each other's language. Already now for some time, young generations has lost that tool, and we need to face it because it's not only a law obligation or constitutional obligation, but it's a need of life of people. Ambassador Brathu rightly mentioned that language helps intercultural, inter-ethnic, but helps as well economy. And we as government of Kosovo, we are proud to highly stress and prove that diversity of languages is as well our value. It's our cultural value, and we are happy to cultivate that. But we see a language as a bridge. In our case, the bridge, or language as a bridge, and communication in each other's language, it's as well very important to heal the past. As this is a region that has gone through a tragical past, and language would help to heal the past, to minimize any misunderstandings, and it's an opportunity for to present and future to be the right one. Our constitution, it's an advanced one on linguistic rights, and as well as rightly stated, we are a bilingual country, bilingual state. Serbian and Albanian are official languages. But yes, we have a lot to do on implementation. As well, we have to keep our commitment and make sure that in municipalities where other ethnicities live, like Turks, Bosnians, Romas, to be able to give them, by law it's given, but by reality, the possibility that their life and their needs and their rights could be implemented in native language. The government of Kosovo is aware that a lot is ahead of us, not only in legislation, but as well in day-to-day work, in working materials. Something that I find interesting is even for our government meetings, it's a challenge to be prepared in both languages. But the insurance comes from Commissioner on Languages here, Mr. Mladenovic, who has shown a real commitment to improve the situation. We will not only back him, but we are ready to take responsibilities. A working group is created now to find out not only to fusionate the units that exist in different parts of our institutions, but as well to be in a level of implementing in time. If a law is, or if a piece of not only legislation but administrative act or a decision of one of our institutions, it's not only good to be rightly in both languages, but right in time. So if a decision comes in a language today, and then in the next or in the other one after 2 months, then this is as well a challenge. So we are happy and really committed, and we see interest of our society to improve implementation, to be in time as well. We need help. We need help because this is now a reality of, I would say, that makes no difference from experiences of other nations in linguistic approach of its own obligations, in its own vision of making everybody feeling in its society. So as far as myself personally, yes, I am lucky. I speak the both languages. I speak Serbian, I speak Albanian, yes, it's my language. But often I see a difference when somebody is not able to communicate in both languages. So I stopped by this because I have to say the presentation of Ambassador Bratu was really the substance of what our needs are, with a commitment that all your suggestions and findings of today's meeting will be welcomed for our government and for our colleagues in duty. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. The next on our list is Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Communities and Returns, Dalibor Jeftić, who I'm sure will have an interesting insights on the forum's.
Hvala Senade. Dobro jutro, Mir Mađes. Good morning to everyone. Najpre, poštovani premijeru, poštovani ambasadori, prisutni kolege ministri, poslanici, poštovani mediji, dame i gospodo, dozvolite mi da nakon ovoga što je rečeno od strane ambasadora Bratua i od strane predsjednika vlade, da sa jednog drugog aspekta, iz jednog drugog ugla ukažem na ono što mi smatramo da jeste trenutno negde problem i nešto što treba da se unapredi kada se govori o implementaciji zakona o jeziku, ali generalno kada govorimo o onome što jesu prava u onom pozitivnom smislu građana Kosova. Bili smo u prilici i gotovo svakodnevno se obični ljudi susreću sa problemima onoga što jeste poštovanje njihovih osnovnih ljudskih prava, a to je pre svega mogućnost da dobiju i usluge, ali da na jedan drugačiji način budu u prilici da uživaju sva ona prava koje oni kao građani imaju, kada nisu u prilici da na svom maternjem jeziku, a da je to zvanični jezik ovdje na Kosovu, dobiju odgovore na pitanja koje oni kao građani imaju. I to jeste svakako problem. I tokom jučerašnjeg dana smo bili u prilici da se i sa gospodinom Zanijerijem, ali i sa ministrom za Evropu i Ameriku iz britanske vlade razgovara na ovu temu, gde smo pokušali da na jedan praktičan način ukažemo zašto je to problem. Ono što želim da istaknem također na samom početku, kao neko kome je ovo već treći mandat u vladi Kosova, jeste da po prvi put sada imamo za situaciju punu posvećenost predsjednika vlade i ove vlade Kosova da se ovo pitanje na jedan kvalitetan način reši. I to moramo da kažemo. Dakle, kada sam bio u prilici da ovaj problem iznesem predsjedniku vlade, on je odmah zatražio da se sastanemo sa komesarom za jezike, gospodinom Mladenovićem, i odmah smo napravili vrlo konkretan dogovor oko koraka koje trebaju da se implementiraju kako bi bili u prilici da jednu ovakvu situaciju promenimo u pozitivnom smislu. I svakako da je to dobar znak da ono što trenutno negde nije dobro, da ono što trenutno fali, a to je implementacija zakona, bude na jedan institucionalni način rešeno. Dakle, puno puta smo u prošlosti bili u prilici da na ovakvim i sličnim događajima govorimo o ovom problemu. I ja ne želim da danas govorimo o namerama. Svakako da o namerama koje su dobre smo bili u prilici da govorimo u prošlosti. Mi trebamo da govorimo o onome što se zove konkretna akcija i koraci kako bismo ovu situaciju promenili. I uz pomoć kancelarije, Poverenika za jezike, uz pomoć kabineta predsjednika vlade i čitave vlade, mislim da ćemo biti u prilici da tako nešto uradimo. Da li smo mogli u prošlosti da učinimo nešto po ovom pitanju? Svakako da jesmo. Ministarstvo za zajednice i povratak, na čijem sam čelu, može da služi kao primjer ostalim institucijama na način na koji smo se mi ophodili u proteklim godinama po ovom pitanju. Niti jedan dokument koji je izašao iz Ministarstva za zajednice i povratak nije bio, a da je to na samo jednom jeziku. Davali smo i drugačije primjere. I ja želim da kažem da je negde i na nama koji smo institucijama, da na našim primjerima pokažemo da možemo da nešto promenimo, da ne čekamo da samo Kancelarija Poverenika za jezike ukazuje na to, već da i mi sami nešto uradimo. Kada sam jednom prilikom kao ministar poslao jedan službeni dopis Skupštini Kosova i tada Komisiji za zakonodavstvo Skupštine Kosova, koji je bio poslat dakle na oba jezika, i na albanskom i na srpskom, dobio sam povratnu informaciju, to jest dopis od strane predsjednice, tadašnje predsjednice Komisije za zakonodavstvo, da dopis neće biti prihvaćen zato što je napisan na srpskom jeziku na ćirilici. I pošto sam bio u prilici da i sa tom poslanicom razgovaram na ovu temu, tražio sam od nje samo da uradi jednostavnu stvar, a to je da izvadi kosovsku ličnu kartu i da na njoj vidi na kom pismu je na srpskom jeziku napisano, to je piše u toj ličnoj karti. Dakle, do nas ljudi, do nas koji imamo određene odgovornosti, do nas koji smo birani ili kojima je delegirano određena odgovornost, način na koji se ophodimo prema ovom pitanju. I nikome ne treba da smeta to da li je neki dopis napisan na srpskom ćiriličnom ili latiničnom pismu, zato što srpski jezik i u srpskom jeziku koristimo oba pisma, već trebamo da gledamo onaj drugi aspekt, a to je pre svega volja i tolerancija u pozitivnom smislu te reči, kao onome što jesu naše obaveze, a i ne samo obaveze, već onome čemu mi svi treba da težimo. To je pre svega poštovanje svih nas, poštovanje jedni prema drugima. Pošto znam da će i gospodin Mladenović sigurno mnogo bolje i mnogo detaljnije izneti ono što treba da se uradi u budućem periodu i nakon izlaganja gospodina Bratua i predsjednika vlade, meni ostaje da i ovde danas poručim još jednom nedvosmisleno ono što mislim da će svakako doprineti poboljšanju jedne ovakve situacije, a to je da svaka institucija i svaki pojedinac u institucijama, od onog lokalnog do centralnog nivoa, preuzme obavezu poštovanja zakona. Neće se problem rešiti samo time što ćemo mi sada imati ovu drugačiju situaciju, da ćemo raditi na drugačiji način kada je o prevodu dokumenta zakona reč, Potrebno je da na lokalnom nivou svaki građanin ima mogućnost i pravo da dobije uslugu na svom jeziku. Albanski i srpski jezik su zvanični jezici na Kosovu i to mora tako da bude na svakom mestu i u svakom trenutku. Jedino tako ćemo biti u prilici da uradimo pravu stvar. I ako neko misli da je Kosovo specifično po ovom pitanju, verujte da nije. I neposredno pre ovog današnjeg sastanka i ovog današnjeg foruma smo bili u prilici da razgovaramo i čuli različite primere i u Kanadi i u Norveškoj, Norveška koja ima 3 zvanična jezika i tako dalje i tako dalje. Dakle, nismo mi baš najkomplikovaniji, naprotiv, opet je sve na nama način na koji ćemo se mi odnositi prema ovom pitanju. Zahvaljujem još jednom.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister Jeftić. Austrian Ambassador Gernot Fandler has also kindly accepted our invitation. This is a good time to remind that Austria is holding the 2017 OSCE Chairmanship, and so Ambassador Fandler is also speaking as a representative of the OSCE Chair. Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you very much. Honorable Prime Minister, dear Deputy Prime Minister, dear Ministers, dear Ambassador Sanier, dear Language Commissioner Mladenovic, dear Ambassador Bratu, Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. The Austrian OSCE Chairmanship in office has been working and is still working to support the transformation of the Western Balkans region on their way towards the European Union. We encourage the reform agenda of the Western Balkans countries. We promote regional integration and regional cooperation across all dimensions of the OSCE. And of course, we also very much support the field missions in the region. The OSCE mission in Kosovo has been actively involved in addressing community issues and specific grievances of non-majority communities in the place where they are residing. We commend the mission for its active engagement and outreach in pursuing its mandate. As chairmanship, we have been engaged in highlighting the impact of our field operations on the ground. The OSCE mission in Kosovo is exemplary for working with all communities to achieve a truly cohesive and foster reconciliation and promote dialogue. Its impact has been much appreciated by participating states in Vienna, and its approach commended by all. I'm also very glad that we have Mr. Mladenovic here today, who has, as Jan has already said it, who has briefed the OSCE in Vienna just recently on the current state of affairs in Kosovo and his activities in this respect. Challenges persist, of course, but the mission can help and support the relevant processes and provide advice on legislation. Having established a good cooperation with the Language Commissioner, this is an example of fruitful cooperation in areas where the OSCE can provide specific and targeted assistance. It is important to assist communities to talk to each other, engage in dialogue, promote a culture of understanding and peaceful coexistence. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been mentioned also already before by Prime Minister and also by Ambassador Bratu. The Western Balkans region is, on the one side, very fragmented, but also, at the same time also a region which is culturally extremely rich. And in my view, this has very much also to do with the fact that the people of this region are so much gifted in speaking foreign languages, in speaking different languages. It was, and it still is, a common pattern here in Kosovo, for example, that ordinary people manage to speak up to 3 languages or even more. This is, I think, one of the big comparative advantages also of this region. All the more, it is therefore unfortunate that, as it is now, Kosovo Albanians rarely learn one of the Slavic languages of the region, and that Kosovo Serbs rarely speak Albanian. It is being said that learning a language opens up a new world. it is also being said that you will never understand the soul of a people if you do not try to understand at least a little bit of their language. So maybe it can help to overcome some prejudices and fears and grievances and open up opportunities as well by studying the language of the other, be it out of necessity, be it out of curiosity, or out of respect. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very glad that the High Commissioner on National Minorities is active in the field and here in the region and works on specific aspects such as language acquisition, textbook and curricular development, as well as training for institutions like the judiciary or the police. We fully support the mandate and the activities of the High Commission on National Minorities in the region, and we very much appreciate the hands-on approach of both the OSCE mission in Kosovo and the High Commissioner on National Minorities. Dear ladies and gentlemen, as the Austrian chairmanship in office is slowly approaching the end, allow me also to use this opportunity, dear Jan, dear colleagues from the OSCE mission here in Kosovo, to express our gratitude on behalf of my colleagues in Vienna, but also on my behalf for the excellent cooperation, but also for the excellent work you and the colleagues in the mission are doing. After almost a year of following very closely the work you're doing, I can say OSCE really makes a difference. Thank you very much. Hvala vama, hvala mi deričom.
Thank you, Ambassador. Given the central topic of the agenda, we also have on our panel the Kosovo Language Commissioner, Mr. Slaviša Mladenović. He and his institutions are doing some excellent work to advance language compliance, and we look forward to hearing from him. Mr. Mladenović.
Hvala Senade. Dear Ambassador, Arkiv Minister, poštovani ministre, dear ambassadors, representatives of international organizations, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to speak today at this event and this high level at this forum. I have to thank OSCE mission in Kosovo for organizing this event and for a continuous support that is provided to the Office of the Language Commissioner, but also for the commitment to the issue of the language rights. After four speakers, the role of the Language Commissioner is more difficult because they spoke with the language of the Language Commissioner or the language of an ombudsperson. So I have to be more technical today. Besoj që personat cilat përcjellen çështjen e përdorimin e gjuhëve në Kosovë janë informuar edhe e din shumë mirë që ligji për gjuhët në Kosovë nuk zbatohet në tërësi. Është vetëm një analizë e thjeshtë, është ball për me identifiku sfidat dhe mangësitë në drejtimin e zbatimit të këtij ligjit. Kjo është ma evidente në drejtimin e përdorimin e drejt shkrimit edhe gramatikën e gjuhëve zyrtare në Kosovë. Institucionet që zbatojnë ligjin për gjuhët në tërësi janë për fakt keq të ralla. Kjo ndikon në mënyrë negativ drejtat e tjera e qytetarëve në Kosovë, si është qasja në drejtësi, punësimi, arsimi dhe informimi. Si rezultat, integrimi e komuniteteve në shoqëri kosovar është e limituar. Smatram sam da je jako bitno da na današnjem forumu čujemo i albanski jezik, iako ovaj deo govora nisam pripremio na albanskom. Tokom prethodnih godina, na osnovu monitoringa koje je obavila Kancelarija poverenika i na osnovu žalbi koje smo primili, pripremili smo niz preporuka za poboljšanje primene zakona o upotrebi jezika u brojnim oblastima administracije. Praktični rezime tih preporuka je predlog strategije za primjenu strategije za promociju jezičkih prava na Kosovu, koja je ukratko fokusirana na tri osnovna cilja, a to je jačanje vladinih kapaciteta za sprovođenje zakona i poboljšanje jezičkih usluga, zatim usklađivanje normativnih akata sa zakonom o upotrebi jezika i ustavnom kategorijom da na Kosovu imamo 2 službena jezika, kao i jačanje svesti javnosti o dobrobitima višejezičnosti i o jezičkim pravima. Taj dokument je i dalje samo nacrt, nadam se njenom skorom usvajanju, ali je jedna od ključnih preporuka ove strategije i formiranje vladine službe za prevođenje, jer smo uočili brojne nedostatke u prevodima normativnih akata. To je dovodilo do brojnih nedoumica i pogrešnih interpretacija zakona. Smatramo da je ta integrisana, profesionalna i obučena služba za prevođenje najbolje rješenje za ovu situaciju. Ambasador Bratu je ukazao na neke ilustracije pogrešnih interpretacija, odnosno pogrešnih prevoda zakona i na potencijalne pogrešne interpretacije u praksi. Ako imamo u vidu procese konsolidacije normativnih akata, zatim pripremu zakona o normativnim aktima i prevode evropskih pravnih tekovina, onda formiranje službe za prevođenje postaje još bitnija tema. Ja danas moram izraziti zadovoljstvo u vezi pozitivnih pomaka i njih moramo pomenuti. Na ovom polju imamo ozbiljan napredak za jednu od suštinski najbitnijih elemenata za poboljšanje primene zakona o upotrebi jezika, a to je odluka o pokretanju inicijative za formiranje vladine službe za prevođenje. To je ideja koju je Kancelarija poverenika, ali i brojne međunarodne organizacije već dugi niz godina zastupaju. Ponovit ću da je vlada protekle nedelje donela odluku o započinjanju procesa formiranja ove službe. Zahvalnost, ja moram biti iskren, zahvalnost pre svega za ovo dugujemo dvojici ljudi koji danas sede pored mene, premijeru i zamjeniku premijera. Ipak, to je samo početak jednog zahtevnog procesa. Tokom narednih meseci moramo naći načina da osiguramo jednu profesionalnu službu, da ne ponovimo greške iz prošlosti kao što su nedovoljno obučeno osoblje, nedovoljan budžet, loša opremljenost, nedostatak elektronskih resursa za prevođenje itd. Jako je bitno da ne propustimo ovu priliku i u vladinu službu za prevođenje privučemo najkvalitetnije ljude. Oni moraju biti motivisani na taj način što će novi biro za prevođenje, ako ga tako nazovemo, biti konkurentan poslodavac koji pruža tržišne uslove za rad. Moraju se obezbediti adekvatne nadoknade, resursi i uslovi za rad. Jako je bitno da se prilikom izrade predloga u obzir uzmu uspešni modeli koji su prisutni, kao na primjer u Kanadi, biro za prevođenje, ili u Evropi, kao što je to direktorat za prevođenje u Evropskoj uniji. Postoje dobra iskustva i dobre prakse u svetu koji se mogu primeniti kod nas. U procesu izrade predloga računam na podršku međunarodne zajednice i u smislu ekspertize i u smislu finansija. Uloga ove službe za prevođenje neće biti puko prevođenje normativnih akata. Ona će imati više drugih uloga. Jedna od njih je obrazovna, jer će se kroz tu službu za prevođenje identifikovati potrebe za profilisanje potrebnih kadrova. Takođe, služba mora imati komponentu treninga kako bi se kako bi se radilo na dodatnoj obuci postojećih prevodilačkih kapaciteta u vladi. I konačno, smatram da je bitno da ova služba ima ulogu kreiranja resursa za javnost i za prevodilačku struku, kao što su izrada rečnika, doprinos izradi rečnika, elektronskih rečnika, resursa za prevođenje, baze pravnih termina itd. Iako imamo pozitivan napredak u ovoj oblasti, ne smemo zaboraviti brojne druge oblasti jezičkih prava, jer je prevođenje normativnih akata samo jedan element. Izveštaji mnogih međunarodnih organizacija i lokalne analize ukazuju na brojne druge nedostatke, ne samo sa normativnim aktima. Pomenut ću samo neke, kao što su, na primjer, 3. i 4. mišljenje Savjetodavnog odbora Okvirne konvencije za nacionalne manjine Saveta Evrope, OSBE-sovi izveštaji o primjeni zakona o upotrebi jezika na lokalnom i centralnom nivou, kao i izveštaji o napretku Evropske unije i drugi izveštaji mnogih organizacija. Ja se moram pohvaliti da je Kancelarija Poverenika za jezik je takođe još u 2014. godini objavila izveštaj o nivou sprovođenja zakona o upotrebi jezika i dala brojne preporuke u cilju rešavanja identifikovanih nedostataka. Sve ove preporuke moramo imati u vidu jer su neki od njih i na neki način uslovi za učlanjenje u mnoge međunarodne organizacije. Zato se priča o jezičkim politikama i jezičkim pravima ne sme završiti na formiranju jezičke službe, prevodilačke službe, već je paralelno sa tim potrebno ozbiljno pristupiti jačanju ostalih kapaciteta u brojnim nezavisnim agencijama i poboljšati nivo jezičkih usluga i na lokalnom nivou. Takođe je potrebno uskladiti i poboljšati zakonodavni okvir i unaprediti ulogu kontrolnih mehanizama. Konačno, jako je bitno raditi na podizanju svesti društva i raditi na razvoju višejezičnosti u društvu kroz širok spektar aktivnosti i kroz saradnju sa obrazovnim sistemom, civilnim sektorom i medijima. Ovako definisana jezička politika mora biti osnov pristupa promociji jezičkih prava. Hvala vam još jednom i nadam se da ćemo nakon ove konferencije imati što pre i konkretne rezultate na ovom polju. Hvala.
Thank you. And finally, let's hear the keynote speech of the event by Ambassador Lamberto Zanier, again known presence here in Kosovo, now serving as the OSCE High Commissioner on National Minorities. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, Prime Minister Haradinaj, Deputy Prime Minister Jevtic, Language Commissioner, dear Ambassadors, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to begin by thanking Ambassador Bratu for inviting me to be the keynote speaker for today's presentation. It's good, in many ways, good to be back home, as Prime Minister Haradinaj said. I really consider still today Kosovo one of the most interesting, intense and challenging phases of my own entire professional personal life. So I'm very attached also to that role, and I'm very attached and I keep following developments here in Kosovo. And I'm happy to be here for this forum today for a number of reasons. It's good that you as the international community are coming here to share your experiences and to contribute to progress that is needed in this area. Language is something that is very much at the core of my mandate. My mandate as a High Commissioner of minorities is a mandate of conflict prevention. And of course, the rights are a component of that. But the mandate and the scope of the mandate is much larger than that. When the institutions was established 25 years ago, it was mandated to detect possible ethnic tensions that could lead to conflict. And in many cases, we have seen that the key component of conflict prevention is a successful integration of the societies and the realization of human rights, of course. And the language rights are very much part of that. many conflicts, and I was pointing this yesterday in our discussion with the Prime Minister, many conflicts that are on the agenda of my own organization, the OSCE, and of the UN, many of those conflicts would not have taken place if these principles of balanced and successful integration of societies had been respected. And who better than you here in Kosovo know that? Language, however, can take on different purposes and role within the society. It is, of course, a personal matter, which is closely connected with identity. But sometimes we stop at that, and we forget that there's much more. Language is also an essential tool of social organization, which then in turn becomes a matter of public interest. So language is not only our own personal thing, because it can serve as a precondition for people access to and enjoyment of others' rights. So it is necessary to facilitate effective communication between different groups and the meaningful participation in civic life. The number of High Commissioners that preceded me worked hard to build on their own experiences, to look at best practices, and developed a large set of guidelines addressing various aspects of integration. There is the so-called Ljubljana guidelines on diverse societies and the integration of diverse societies, but then there are more specific and focused guidelines addressing issues like policing, the judiciary, the issue of participation of minority groups in public life, the issue of the education. And there is a set of guidelines on language, which, by the way, we will celebrate the 20th anniversary next year of these guidelines, and these are the Oslo guidelines. And we now heard that in Norway they have 3 official languages. So it is a very fitting place in Norway next year to go there and remind ourselves of some of these principles and remind ourselves that there are experiences that are there, and there are models that are there to be used, to be looked at, to be used, and to be replicated, to be adjusted, of course, to the specifics of every situation. These are based on international human rights instruments and standards, including UN instruments or regional conventions like the Council of Europe conventions, etc. And I'm happy to see that many of these standards are already contained now within the comprehensive legal framework that is applicable here. The challenge confronting Kosovo, however, and I'm familiar also with this challenge, and is known to many of you, is the realization and implementation of what is there. So that's, I think, where we should all put the effort to make the progress. And I hope that this event will serve to remove some of the obstacles to implementation. The requirements we are here to consider today, that is to provide laws, instructions, official documents, but also institutional services in 2 official languages, should not be viewed as a burden. These rights provide a unique opportunity to promote social cohesion and to promote integration, and to assist in preventing sources of interethnic conflict, because we keep going back to there. A stable society is a society where these principles are in fact implemented and they are respected. Successive High Commissioners have recognized the importance of protecting and promoting language in diverse multi-ethnic societies. And what I want to do today is to share some of the experience accumulated in my institution. And I will start by saying that complying, or stressing that complying with language requirement is essential to guarantee access to public institutions. And access is one of the elements that create a stable society, the components of stable society. When laws are inaccessible, incomplete, or inconsistent in an official language, communities are often unable to fulfill their rights. And this can lead to marginalization, to challenges in accessing police, judicial, health, media, educational services. An inability to access services can create or reinforce a lack of trust in the institutions. And it can create a perception that the system favors members of the majority community. And this undermines the social cohesion and fosters alienation and weakens the society. In contrast, if we ensure that administration, justice, police, education operate and they are available in all official languages, this can enhance the trust among non-majority communities. This access strengthens other policies and programs that are intended to promote integration and ensure that the rights of communities are guaranteed. And these rights are clearly enshrined in the international law as well as in the laws and the regulations of Kosovo. And I would like to illustrate this by providing an example of how to access services can be promoted through language. My office has worked in Kosovo together with the Language Commissioner and together with the European Centre for Minority Issues and with the financial support of a number of OSCE countries, Switzerland, Germany, Austria, the current chairmanship, to implement a language acquisition project in multi-ethnic municipalities. Since 2012, this project has provided language courses for municipal officials to learn the official language that they do not speak. And the aim is to help them serve the public and communicate with all members of the society, irrelevant of their linguistic background. And this is a simple measure. It can go a long way in promoting mutual respect, social cohesion, and trust in the institutions. But even where municipal officials acquire the knowledge of a second official language, such progress will be undone if laws, institutions, and official documents are inaccessible in the official language. And one of the concerns addressed by this forum is the significant discrepancies, and we heard examples of this also by Ambassador Bratu, which continue to appear between the official Albanian and Serbian versions of legislation. The recent reintegration of Serbian-speaking judges and prosecutors, the progress this represents, will be diminished if laws are not adequately translated and professional interpretation is not available. Ensuring accurate translation and interpretation is vital to show that all community rights are respected and represented. And it is also fundamental access to justice concern, an issue of considerable importance for my institution. And for my part, I would like to encourage central local officials as well as international partners to continue to support the Language Commissioner in implementing his mandate and related projects. Unified, coordinated efforts are critical to ensure institutions are able to provide necessary services and adhere to their obligations. One other point, which is the need to overcome segregation. My institution has found it is essential to develop and support an integration process to prevent division along ethnic lines. Integration is a process of mutual accommodation and active engagement involving all members of a society as individuals or organized groups. Embracing a multilingual society, as advocated today, provides the opportunity to better accept attitudes to other languages and cultures, because this can serve as a bridge within and between communities and allow local and central administration to function more effectively. Where the enjoyment of the right to use one's own language is guaranteed, members of all communities view such acts as a sign of respect and inclusiveness. Conversely, failure to comply with language requirements can fuel resentment against local and central officials and prevent integration. Respecting and promoting Kosovo's official languages is therefore critical to meaningful integration and the building of a sustainable multi-ethnic society. And it is also necessary to allow for consultative processes and interaction with public officials. I still see signs of segregation in Kosovo. For instance, in the judicial system, in the educational institutions. Progress requires communication and the opportunity for communities to interact in their own language with public administrations. And such interaction can provide security for citizens, protect human rights, ensure good and effective governance, and overcome divisions between communities. Failing to provide laws, instructions, and official documents in the official languages will continue to impede progress, and these are the core of many challenges that lie ahead. I note in particular that in spite of the support of key international partners, implementation of the law on the use of languages remains incomplete. The strategy for the promotion of language rights has yet to be adopted, despite intense efforts on the part of the Language Commissioner. And there is no doubt that developing language skills and ensuring a multilingual administration is a long-term process, which will require considerable effort and commitment. But we need to acknowledge that time has passed. When clear obstacles can be identified, they should be overcome. And today, more than ever, we have the opportunity to address these challenges. It is important to remember that it's not possible for one community to take on the full burden of an integration of the society. It is a duty of and a benefit to the society as a whole. Establishing a truly bilingual framework will require shared responsibilities and the engagement of the whole society, and it is a matter of mutual understanding and commitment. In this regard, there have been encouraging efforts. This includes a working group for the creation of a centralized translation cell. We heard quite a bit of that today, which is intended to improve translation efforts and provide better support services. And I would like to encourage all partners to ensure that this process is realized. Today, it is an excellent opportunity, in concluding, to consider the gains that have been made and ensure greater compliance with Kosovo's legislative framework regarding the use of languages. We are joined by very knowledgeable experts who can provide important insights and engage in meaningful discussions. I would like to thank you once again for your gracious invitation to the event, and I really look forward to continuing to work closely with all those gathered. Faleminderit. Hvala lepa.
Thank you, High Commissioner. This completes the first panel remarks. The media are now invited to ask any questions they may have. Please be reminded we only have approximately up to 10 minutes for questions and answers due to other obligations of the panelists. And if I can kindly ask the media to try to ask questions that are related to the topics of the forum. Thank you. So do we have any questions from the media?
Aleksandra Zdravković, radio televizije Kim iz Čaglavice. Samo da ukažem ponovo na problem koji imaju srpski mediji ovdje na Kosovu, gde im se iz policije i tužilaštva, recimo i mnogih drugih ministarstava, saopštenja šalju samo na albanskom jeziku. Pa eto, mogo bi možda premijer da nam da savet kako da se nosimo sa time i kome da se obratimo za taj problem.
Hvala vam na ovo pitanje. Mislim da danas svi složimo se da implementacija ne ide u nivo i uz obaveze koje imamo zakonskim obavezama. Za nas je to ono što je danas rečeno, da implementacija je naš posao sada. Implementacija je veliki posao, kako komisioner Mladenević rekao, nisu samo prevodioci, nego to je i cijeli način rada i sistem poruke pa i do građana. Ono što ja ubrzo mogu raditi, ja mogu sad zatražiti od institucije, na primjer pravde, sudstvo i ovome da povećavaju kapacitet, da oni su u situaciju da odgovaraju i da obezbeđi da oba službeni jezika, sada pričamo o albanskom i srpskim, da u bilo kom jezik da oni su sposobni da komuniciraju službeno sa građanima. Ali znamo da implementacija nije još u stanje zadovoljavajuće. Hvala vam.
Seems that we don't have any further questions from the media. So thank you again. This ends our first panel. We will take a few minutes for the panels to change. Thank you very much again to our distinguished panelists. As for the audience, we will just so know that we will go straight to the second panel. There's no break in between. We'll just take a minute to change the panel. Thank you. As we said, we're going straight to the second panel in a minute, so please stay here if you can.
Bonjour monsieur, vous allez bien? Oui. Je suis le chef de la section. Non, je suis de Gatineau, du Canada. Ah oui? Voilà, je suis le chef de la section de justice ici à la Minute. Donc je tenais à vous saluer. J'ai parlé avec je suis ici depuis 2 ans, mais je suis basé à New York en fait. Donc, mais j'ai pris cette fonction ici en décembre 2015. Je retourne à New York à la fin de l'année. J'ai bien entendu parler de vous. J'étais avec mon ami Ken Vachon à la mission canadienne et d'autres collègues. Ils m'ont dit d'être en contact avec vous quand je passais ici. On n'a pas réussi à se rencontrer encore, mais ça fait plaisir de vous voir. Voilà. Quelques Canadiens. Exactement. Notamment, oui, on est là. On est avec Andrew Russell également. Donc on est quelques-uns quand même ici. Excellent. Donc j'avais parlé avec la mission canadienne quand j'étais là à New York. J'ai demandé à mon collègue Ami là-bas. Juste pour vous dire qu'on avait quelques projets en plan pour le futur. Donc je suis en train de compléter maintenant. Mais pour appuyer la justice ici. Et donc je les apporte parce qu'un des projets en fait, qu'on a mis dans ce qu'on appelle le Justice 2020, j'ai tout réfléchi en fait à la situation du pays et d'envoyer peut-être quelques juges et procureurs d'ici pour faire une visite de travail à Ottawa, dans le ministère, voir comment la rédaction législative se fait, comment les formations se font. Je suis un ancien de l'Université d'Ottawa, donc on a un programme de rédaction d'interprétation de traduction. Voilà. Oui. Excellent. Voilà. Excellent.
How are you? Well, I know.
capital Pristina and then somewhere else. So it's yeah. Yes. Wow.
And they participated in the service. And then we took them away. And they were swilling back the vodka and they were literally up there dancing.
It should be very interesting. I'll be there also this Sunday.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be very good.
Lost 13 Commonwealth soldiers, British soldiers, 14, and indeed the monument has been closed, so looking forward to meeting with the ambassador. Our children are at the same school, so I know it well, actually.
The vision was that no Kosovo realized people had died here as a result of
faculty are you studying more?
So I'm actually some science, but I'm doing my master's at the graduate school.
Excellent, excellent, excellent.
4 months.
Very good.
4 years through the rain.
This is very nice.
It's already your third trip to Kosovo.
So that's Alan's work, right? In terms of building the bridge. I know Alan actually quite well. Every year we used to have a meeting of former alumni at the University of Ottawa, New York. So a lot of us are in the private sector, working for law firms, actually a lot of, but also a few of us also working for the UN.
Treasury Board Secretary imposes discipline on public service, compliance with policies. They hate
Interesting. term, right? Is he still there, or are you
Still there, but I think his term is coming.
Yeah, so he was starting a family business, I guess you may know. So, but a great, great, great guy.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you please take your seats? We can continue. Të nderuar musafirë, nëse mundemi me vazhdu, ju lutem.
Well, with some of the audience list with the stuff.
How do I properly An or Anne?
And I'm used to people Anne.
And
In Finnish, it's Anne, call me Anne. And Huhtamaki.
Huhtamaki. Okay, that's straightforward.
What is the pronunciation?
Huh?
Do you have a
Back in New York, but if you're in New York, it's a pleasure to see you there.
Mr. Slavisha Mladenovic.
Yes, yes.
Good. Still, I've tried learning some Albanian. I'm taking lessons. It's a long road.
Yeah.
Catch a little bit. Serbian language, unfortunately, I have not had time for. But it's a Slavic language.
Apparently,
I
it's
cannot
easier.
understand some.
Apparently, it's easier to the people.
I think it
Can you
could
get
be.
an agenda? I forgot it.
I actually think it could be.
Well, if you know at least some Russian, then you'll be.
Commissioner, if there is some time constraint, I'm flexible. You know, I can. If
I
there is
think-
really a deadline.
How long is?
Absolutely. 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 Well, that's great. Because one of the great role here, I must say, also in terms of the justice system, I work with my friend Sean, who's ambassador now in Mozambique. So the first 3 years, he was here from 2000 to 2002, the years in office. And we started a forensic program at the University of Pristina. I brought this doctor, Dr. Markenstein, from Manitoba. Dr. Markenstein. Uncle of my brother-in-law. Don't tell me. I brought him here. With Sean. And that was one of our initiatives, key initiative in terms of building. This was a niche area where we could see there was a need and there was Canadian expertise top notch. So we brought him here. So he stayed here a couple of years. You were still with you and Yes, I was with Unmik. So my wife is actually from here. So part of the reason in me returning here also is my link with this place, but we really did a lot of stuff on the justice side together at that time. So yeah, and Canada's a fantastic image here. Yeah. I'll be happy to. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Exactly. There probably is a legacy of that contact. There is. Yeah. For example, marketing now retired. Yeah. Probably available. Exactly. Exactly.
Please take your seats. We will continue in a minute. And feel free to move forward if necessary. Now I will speak in English as well, just like the rest of the speakers. The Office of the Language Commissioner is a member of the International Organization of Language Commissioners. This organization also as members, has a number of ombudspersons dealing with language rights in their jurisdictions. Some of the representatives of some of the states presented in these associations are here with us today. And the knowledge that myself and my colleagues got from the exchange with the language commissioners and different ombudspersons or persons in charge of language accommodation in administration in their jurisdictions are kind of familiar to us, will be presented to you as well. With us today, we have Ms. Laurie Wright, the Assistant Deputy of the Minister of Justice in Canada, the Ambassador of Switzerland, Jean-Hubert Lebet. Sorry for my pronunciation of the names, if that's wrong. Ambassador Anne Huhtamäki from Finland, and Jean-Louis Servet, Chief of Diplomatic Missions of Belgium. To start with, we will hear the presentation of Ms. Laurie Wright. She comes from Canada. In the International Association of Language Commissioners, we consider Canada to be our big brother. The example that all of the other jurisdictions need to follow in terms of language accommodation. This is probably one of the best case scenarios that a state would like to follow in order to accommodate the needs of the language minorities. In Canada, of course, you all know English and French are the official languages on federal level, but also for those who don't know, Aboriginal languages and are official in some provinces in the north. More on the language accommodation policies and especially the topic on drafting normative acts into official languages will be presented by Ms. Wright.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, for that kind introduction. And indeed, I know that not only in the area of official languages, but in other areas, Canada has been a committed partner of Kosovo. So I'm delighted to be here today, not only to offer my own small contribution to the topic that we're discussing, but also because, although my visit is short, I've had the precious opportunity to learn more about Kosovo and the country's desire to make the most of the opportunities that it's facing right now. It's a pleasure to see the Canadian government's commitment to diversity and inclusion, including official language minority communities, reflected here in Kosovo as well. I'd like to start with a brief explanation of the language rights structure at the national level in Canada, just to give you a picture. And then I will speak in a little more detail about our legislative drafting process in Canada. So under Canada's Constitution, which unlike many countries doesn't show up only in one document, we have a whole folio of documents that together comprise the Constitution because they have grown up organically since the beginning of our relatively young country in 1867. However, it has some important provisions in it with respect to language rights. So, for example, the debates in our national parliament take place in either English or French at the option of the person who's speaking. We have, as a matter of practice, simultaneous interpretation so that anyone can listen in the language of their choice. All the records of parliament have to be published in both English and French. Any person appearing before a federal court can choose to have the court proceeding in the language of their choice. And our laws must be printed and published in both English and French. In 1982, we added a new part to our Constitution, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And that document also included some important provisions to do with language rights. So it affirmed in the Constitution that English and French are the official languages of the federal government, meaning the executive, and not just Parliament, so that the day-to-day business of government now must be transacted in both official languages. And it also gave a right to members of the public to have services and communications from the federal government in English or in French. So that's our overall constitutional structure. We've given further meaning and further rights in the legislative context. So we have a Federal Official Languages Act, which works to further the notion of linguistic duality in Canada. So in addition to the rights that we have in the Constitution, it gives those who work in the federal public service the right to work in their language of choice. It also commits the government to supporting the vitality of official language minority communities across the country. And as your own commissioner is very aware, it creates an independent office of Commissioner of Official Languages. He can receive complaints and investigate federal institutions, and he reports directly. So one of the big success stories in Canada of the implementation of this framework of rights is the federal government's Translation Bureau, which provides interpreters for live events to ensure that all government events are carried out in both English and French, and translates written documents to make sure that all the policies, papers, and directions of the government that are made public come out in both official languages, and that both of those official languages are equally good versions. Access by members of minority language communities to government services and documents in their first official language is a key part of those communities' vitality. Not only does it support the community to flourish in feeling respected and included in the larger society, but it's fundamental to being able to participate in the democratic life of the state, as well as having access to justice. So, the availability of both language versions of federal laws and regulations in Canada is a key part of this. And so now I will speak about our legislative drafting process and how it furthers the true equality of English and French in Canada. The way that we initiated this process in Canada was quite some time ago. In 1967, our cabinet, our Council of Ministers, ordered that bills be submitted to ministers in both English and French. And the recommendation for this was that we would begin a new practice called dual drafting at the time. We now call it co-drafting, in order to obtain equal quality in French and English in the product of the legislative drafting process. So what we did in Canada at the federal level was brought all those who draft legislation and regulations, all the Legislative Council, work together in one branch at the Department of Justice. So they are under my authority, and they are responsible for drafting all federal laws and regulations. The branch is made up not only of the Legislative Council, who do the drafting, but we have a bijuralism group, which ensures that both our civil and common law traditions are respected in our laws. We have jurilinguists who are specialists in legal language to help the legislative drafters. We have editors and revisers who do the last check for other problems. And in addition, we have a group of specialized lawyers who can provide legal advice on statutory interpretation on the ground while the legislation is being drafted. What this means is that we have quite a complicated and active drafting process where even in the room itself, things sometimes get quite exciting. So we have a lot of participants in an actual room where legislation is being drafted. So first, you have Legislative Council. Every time we draft, it's with a team, one Anglophone and one Francophone, but both of whom are fluently bilingual so that they can work together and comment on each other's work. And they are sitting side by side with computer screens which have the French and English versions of the draft law, and they are working in real time together to make sure that the two versions are equally authoritative. Also in the room at the same time, you will have officers from other departments who are responsible for the policy behind the bill so that they can interact with the drafters to make sure that their policy idea is actually being reflected in the bill. They may have their own lawyers with them to offer their own legal perspective on things. The objective of this process is obviously not just the quality of how the policy is expressed in the law, but it is to produce two original and authentic versions through close and constant cooperation of two legislative council working as a team. Each version represents the instructions that they've been given, but respecting the nature of each language, as well as Canada's twin legal systems. French and English Council, through this process, of course, must have equal right to instructive materials in both official languages. And the interesting thing is that each of those two council is the master of his or her language version. There is not one version that is subordinate. So, for example, we don't draft where French is subordinate to English. We don't draft where English is subordinate to French. Both drafts have the same level of importance. The key point for this is that once the law has gone through the legislative process and been enacted into law, both the English and French versions are equally authoritative. So, in the event that, as can happen, there are questions around interpretation, our courts look at both versions to come up with what the meaning of the statute is based on both the English and the French. So I'm proud of the results of this model because it produces very high quality versions of both English and French that reflect the same meaning and intent. So this not only gives life to our constitutional requirements, but it fundamentally allows both English and French speakers to participate in the life of the state by knowing what the law is in order to abide by it and also to be able to advocate its change. I know that Kosovars share this vision for a diverse and inclusive society governed by the rule of law, a prosperous and peaceful society where everyone feels welcome and enjoys equal opportunity. So thank you for my chance to reflect on this with you today.
Thank you, Ms. Rice. Obviously, the complexity in some cases is not a burden and it's not a problem, but actually contributes to the quality of legislation. In Kosovo, we were striving to look for simplicity in achieving the quality, while actually we should turn more to a more complex system. Thank you so much. When we usually discuss implementation of law and use on languages, the comments are that this is a very expensive process and that administration, it's an additional burden to administration. And that actually multilingualism is destined to be the policy of rich societies, but not the poor ones. Today with us, we have the representative of Switzerland, the ambassador of Switzerland in Kosovo. And the question for him is, how does a state work with 4 official languages on federal level? How is that reflected on the economy or the cost? What is the cost of maintaining Switzerland, the multilingual country? And do you consider it as a burden or a value?
Thank you very much. for this question addressed to Switzerland, very rich country. Perhaps a bit of very short history. Switzerland was a poor country until the Second World War. And modern Switzerland of 1848 was a poor country. Like Kosovo, we exported our manpower abroad, and until before the Second World War, people had to leave the country because it was not producing enough work. To say that the modern Switzerland was created in 1848, and it was an association of independent states. Some of them being Francophone, others speaking German, and another one Italian, and so on. And with all responsibility of a state. And the main reform in 1848 was the fact that we united, and all the republics there, the 26 republics, decided to give responsibilities to the central state for defense, the currency, creation of the Swiss franc, diplomacy, and some high schools, full stop. And all the remaining was left to the cantons, including culture and education. That's why you have by law, each 26 cantons speak their own language, which is French, German, Italian, and we have a tiny minority Romansh spoken in two cantons. So all the culture language is devoted downstairs. And the central government is at the service of the republics and has to be able to answer to all the cantons in their own language. And from the start, it was like that. And the key issue was to recruit civil servants speaking at the central level, speaking at least and able to write the other main language. I was head of recruitment in diplomatic service. We had excellent candidates who were not able to understand or speak another language. From the beginning, it was the first exam, and people not able to express themselves out. So, and then we lost excellent people, but the issue is we need in the center people able to understand and speak the other language. When I have a staff meeting in my embassy with the colleagues, I have to speak to my colleagues in their own language. So I have to speak French, German, and Italian. So it's part of the job. And it's like that, and there is no discussion about it. It's because of that it works. And you asked me what about the costs? And I asked to the delegates of in Switzerland, we have a federal delegate for plurilingualism, and she doesn't know. We don't know how much it costs us, because the question is completely different. The approach is wrong. You don't ask how much it costs, because if you start like that, how much does cost health policy? So you have to count and not to spend money. But it has a cost, and you have to ensure a good job. Same thing with education and culture. If you don't give some money to culture, just prove ignorance. Ignorance is very cheap, but it doesn't work. It doesn't help. So the point is, it's unavoidable. So in our state, we try to maintain these criteria that all the people are speaking the language as a central state. And I was astonished. She told me, the delegates, that it's the first time that somebody asked her, how much does it cost? Because we have to pay for that. Is it? Okay. And then the other point is, is it a burden, an advantage, or how do you see that? So it's, as I think it's the Prime Minister who told that, and if you live together, you have to understand a bit how it works on the other side. And the best way to understand them is to at least understand the language. And here it's really tragic. When we talk with people here in Kosovo, you see really the limit. Under 40 years old, people do not speak the other languages. Over 40, they still are able to communicate in the region. We were in Sarajevo with other ambassadors, Swiss ambassadors there, and it's exactly the same problem. People do not talk together now because of the absence of language and so on. Voilà, so I'm ready.
Thank you for this note, Ambassador. I had the chance to meet Miss Nicolette Marionini in Ireland a couple of years ago, and we discussed this issue in general. And she is a very, very right person to be in that position. Very strict about language compliance in federal institutions. I also need to use this opportunity to make a small comment. A couple of years ago, during the DocuFest event in Prizren, Swiss Embassy helped us bring a lecturer, a professor, Francois Green, and he did, a couple of years ago, he did a research on how much the multilingual working force contributes to the Swiss economy. The findings of that study were stunning. The analysis done in the university found that if the Swiss citizens would forget other languages other than their own mother tongue overnight, Switzerland would lose more than if they would lose all the banks during the night. So this is how much the Swiss economy actually profits from their working force being multilingual.
Excuse me. I see my colleague of, if I can add 1 minute.
Yes.
My colleague of Council of Europe. We are working together in order to support your strategy in terms of, and we are lobbying very strongly to your Minister of Finance, because your Minister of Finance refused to finance your strategy. And the argument we used there was to say he would make savings by implementing this strategy, by recruiting good interpreters and translators, because now you are spending a hell of a lot of money to recruit consultants in order to get some type of, so you have to acquire it within your government, and we hope that this new government will manage to make some progress there. Thank you. Sorry, I forgot.
Thank you for all the support both Council of Europe and Swiss Embassy provides to the Office of Language Commissioner, and I hope this will bring some results with the new government. One of the critics of the law on use of languages in Kosovo oftentimes is that it's rather generous, that in comparison to the laws in the region, it actually grants too many rights to such a small population of people. In fact, many cases worldwide are similar. It's just the choice of which cases we want to choose to oppose the law or to actually enforce it. One of the good cases in the world is Finland, which grants the full language rights to Swedish community, even though they only present 4% of population, if I'm not wrong, and they have the right to access all the administrative services and education in their own language. Today with us is Finnish Ambassador Ann Huhtamäki. Again, I hope I pronounced it right. Who will present the policies for language accommodation in Finland and give us a background of what Finland does to cater its own minority, linguistic minority. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mladenovic. And Dear fellow ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for invitation today, and I'm proud to speak at this OSCE Forum on language compliance of bilingualism in Finland. This is close to my heart, something I've come across my life ever since childhood, my studies and working life. And I will share also some of my personal experience from my career, and I will also like to give you some of the facts and experience of the bilingualism, 2 official languages in Finland. What is the legislation protecting it, how it is done in practice, and what are the language rights in Finland. And I speak of Finland's legislation and experience because it can, in my opinion, offer some useful experience relevant to Kosovo. It is relevant for taking forward the Ahtisaari plan with regard to peace and a multi-ethnic Kosovo. Firstly, the 2 official languages in Finland are Finnish and Swedish. 90% of the population are Finnish-speaking, and, well, a little bit more than 4%, 5.4% are Swedish-speaking. Finland is divided still into 320 municipalities, of which 30, some 10% of municipalities are bilingual. The rest are unilingual, with either Finnish or Swedish as the primary language. Most of the bilingual municipalities are located on the coast or west coast. My childhood hometown, Kristiinankaupunki, Kristinestad in Swedish, is a bilingual town with more than half of the inhabitants speaking Swedish. In my childhood, going to school and to the 3rd grade, my first foreign language when I was 9 years old was Swedish. Why Swedish, not English? Because of the neighborhood. Because I was growing up in a bilingual town where more than half of the people were Swedish speaking. It was then the choice to start as a first foreign language with the Swedish language. So in school I've studied more than 10 years of Swedish. I will come back to it with more experience of it. My vocabulary may not be that good, but I reveal a secret. My father has a master's degree in Swedish language, so I have had my training of pronunciation at home. Finnish and Swedish are legally equal languages in Finland. All legislation of Finland has to be translated into Swedish and Finnish. And these translations have to be ready before the laws can enter into force, before they can be issued. My experience of the first years of my work as a diplomat in the Ministry for Foreign Affairs of Finland was dealing with translating short acts of entry into force of international treaties. Well, these acts were often very short, 10 lines altogether, names of the agreements, entry into force. But that was in the legal department, it was one of my first tasks to take care of it, that these would be done in Finnish and Swedish. And of course, these translations were checked by official translators of the Ministry for Foreign Affairs or the cabinet, the government cabinet's official translators. But the main lesson I learned was laws and acts need to be readily translated before they can be approved and enter into force. And translation needs to be diligent work. Well, lawyers will be enthusiastic for the next section. Which are the main laws and documents for linguistic rights in Finland? Well, firstly, the basic for the linguistic rights in Finland is Constitution of Finland, Section 17. Secondly, the Language Act further elaborates on the linguistic rights of the 2 national languages. The right to use Finnish and Swedish with the government and municipal officials of Finland, and the duty of the officials to give services on these languages. And in addition, there are laws containing provisions on language matters in other legislation as well. Moreover, Finland is bound by several international treaties. Another central document in Finland to secure linguistic rights is Action Plan for the Strategy of National Languages of Finland. And I brought with me a toolkit, Strategy for the Languages, National Languages of Finland, how they can be taken into practice, into websites, into servicing people better by the authorities. And well, this is I feel like going home because this is close to my hometown. The signs in bilingual communities are in 2 languages. I will gladly share this with you. This is available also in English in the internet. Fourthly, I would like to mention that every government of Finland has to publish a report, basically every 4 years, on the application of language legislation. And this report is submitted to the Parliament, and it focuses on the changes that have occurred in recent years in the implementation. And as a 6th element, I would also like to mention the special status of Åland, the Åland Islands of Finland, in the northwestern part of Finland. Their history goes back into 1920s. The League of Nations granted Finland sovereignty over Åland Island in 1921. In return, Finland was placed under an obligation to guarantee Ålanders the right to preserve their Swedish language, culture, local customs, and the system of self-government. And the Autonomy Act of Åland is regarding the rights of Åland Parliament, empowering Åland to legislate on internal affairs and vote on its own budget. And it also authorizes Swedish as the only official language of Åland. So that is part of our history. How many languages are there actually in Finland? Finland today is a multilingual country. There are 148 languages which are spoken as mother tongue in Finland. So 90% of the people are Finnish speaking, Finnish as mother tongue, 5.4% Swedish as mother tongue, and some 4.5% have other languages as their mother tongue. In addition to Swedish and Finnish, there are 3 specific languages with specific mentions in the legislations. The Sami language of northern part of Finland, Lapland, the Roma language, and sign language. According to the Constitution, the Sami, as an indigenous people, as well as the Roma and other groups, have the right to maintain and develop their own language and culture. And the right of people using sign language is also guaranteed by law. The biggest language groups after Finnish and Swedish are Russian, Estonian, Somali, English, and Arabian, after the migration flows in 1990s. There are other historical languages which has been spoken for hundreds of years in Finland: Sami, Roma, Tatar, Yiddish, Russian, and Karelian language. What are the actual linguistic rights for the 2 national languages? Well, according to the Constitution, it is the right to one's own language and culture. Every citizen has a right to use before court and with other authorities their own language, Finnish or Swedish, and to get their documents with their own language, and this is secured by law. The government must take care of the cultural and the societal needs equally for both Finnish and Swedish-speaking people. You were talking about bonuses given for officials in Canada if they are fluently bilingual. There are, of course, requirements for Finland, for authorities, public authorities, what are the language requirements. And when studying law at the University of Helsinki, before I got my law degree, I had to pass a test in the Swedish language in order to qualify for a government official and possibly a judge. I had to have satisfactory knowledge of both written and oral skills of the Swedish language. Understanding the language is not enough, both oral skills. I passed the test, but with legal vocabulary, even after 10 years of Swedish at school, I had to take an extra course on legal terminology in Swedish, but I found it fun and useful. But of course, the true test was really when working, when serving people in Swedish language, and also doing correspondence in the Swedish language when needed. Well, the authorities, how do we define their duties? Well, basic unit is the municipality. According to the language law of Finland, authorities are either unilingual or bilingual in municipalities. A municipality is bilingual if there are both Swedish and Finnish-speaking inhabitants, and that the minority is at least 8% of the inhabitants, or at least 3,000 people. And as I said, about 10% of the municipalities of Finland are bilingual at the moment. So these are our minimum requirements for municipality to always provide bilingual services. And a bit of history. Every country has its own history. In Finland, for hundreds of years, we have been using both Finnish and Swedish. Swedish was the language of legislation and administration for more than 600 years. Even during the time when Finland, after being 600 years part of Sweden, in 1809 Finland became part of Russia. Even during the next more than 100 years, Swedish in Finland was the main language for administration. Finnish language was taken into administrative use in the 19th century. In 1906, even before our independence, the parliamentary system brought Finnish language as a majority language for preparing legislation. Finland became independent in 1917, which we are celebrating this year, 100th independence centenary. And in 1919, in the young state of Finland, Finnish and Swedish language became equal. And the first language law was passed in 1922. Well, how are the linguistic rights in practice today? Who follows and monitors them? The supreme monitors are Chancellor of Justice of the Cabinet of the Government and the Parliamentary Ombudsman Ombudsman in Finland. And I'm for Mr. Mladenovic. Unfortunately, you will not find a colleague. We do not have a specific language commissioner in Finland. The monitoring is arranged in another way. And I mentioned you the report of the government. Every 4 years, the government reports on how the two official languages and the rights of languages are taken care of. The last notions from 2013 are that for the Swedish speaking, it's not always easy to have full language rights. Sometimes there are not enough staff, for instance, in hospitals, healthcare, and some other authorities who have adequate Swedish language skills. They also say in the report that responsibility to having the services in their own languages is at the initiative of the client. They are by name or by previous history, they are not necessarily automatically addressed with their own language, but it is their responsibility to say, this is the language I want to be treated with. And the fewer the Swedish-speaking people are at the municipalities, the harder it is for them to get service in Finnish. Well, in some bilingual communities, it might be also a little bit hard for the Finnish to get full service in the Finnish language. But it needs understanding. We need understanding from both sides of the neighbors. An atmosphere towards the languages in Finland, most of the Finns, the majority, are very positive or neutral towards the Swedish language. But I must say, maybe lately the social media is more poignant in talking about what the minority language position should be, or the need of 2 official languages. I mentioned about my years of school. Swedish language is not anymore obligational at the baccalaureate, but just about everyone still learns Swedish at school, so there's also talk about it. Can it be even more optional in the coming years? In conclusion, I would like to say that language rights are a fascinating topic to me. They are fascinating because of their legal dimensions and also because every new language you learn expands your thinking. I hope this experience can be useful to Kosovo. And as a last point, I would like to take up the example of the national anthem of Finland. The words for the national anthem are both in Finnish and in Swedish. We may sing them first in Finnish, then in Swedish, or then everyone sings at the same time at their own language. And this is what we will do also here in Kosovo in December to celebrate our independence. Thank you for inviting me here, and I'm gladly answering any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ambassador. I'm sure there will be a question. We will have a question and answer session after all the presentations. The most striking element of your speech was the fact of the language learning in the schools. Unfortunately, we have almost forgotten the time when the languages of social surroundings were subject in schools in Kosovo. Also, an interesting element to hear is the Roma language accommodation in Finland. This is something new for me, even though one of the founding fathers of the organization of language commissioner is Per Stambak, your former foreign minister. This is the first time I heard that you have a Roma language policy, and I would be more than interested to hear more about this, because Roma languages Kosovo is also very important. It gained the status of a language in official use in one municipality, but I think we need to pay attention more about the preservation and promotion of Roma language and other small non-official languages in Kosovo. And finally, one of the presenters is the Belgian ambassador, actually the chief of diplomatic mission of Belgium, Jean-Louis Servet. I hope that I pronounce it properly. And Belgium is another European country with 2 dominant languages. The language accommodation and language policies don't necessarily have to be identical to other jurisdictions. But again, on state level, the legislature works in both languages. Also having in mind that Brussels is a so-called capital of Europe, multilingualism in Brussels gets another dimension. What is your view of the role of bilingualism in Kosovo for the European integration? And also, please give us a little bit of a background of the situation in Belgium.
Thank you, Mr. the Commissioner. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in your titles, qualities and functions, dear friends, first of all, I would like to thank and congratulate the organizers of this event, which is very important and which shows us once more the quality and the importance of the role and the action of OSCE here under your direction, Ambassador Bratu, and and we know also the quality of all your collaborators, all your teams. So I'm extremely pleased and honored to be here today and to have the opportunity to contribute to this forum and to briefly share with you some aspects of the experience of Belgium in the field of language compliance. I would like to divide my short presentation into 4 points. Very shortly, a very brief history of multilingualism in Belgium. Then a very short presentation of the federal organization of the Belgian state, which is complex. Thirdly, the current situation regarding multilingualism in the field of the organization and the working of the parliamentary assemblies in Belgium. So really from the point of view of the legislative drafting process. And to end, I will answer your question, Mr. the Commissioner, between the link about the link between the multilingualism and the path of Kosovo towards the European integration. So I would like to start with a very brief history of multilingualism in Belgium. Without covering the whole history of Belgium since its independence in 1830, or even before, I would like to emphasize the thorough evolution, the thorough transformation of the Belgian state during these 180 years. In 1830, according to its constitution, Belgium was a unitarian and centralized state, which was also monolingual. So French was the only official language. Also, only a small, even very small minority of the population had the right to vote, which was only granted to the male citizens who were rich enough to pay a certain amount of taxes. So the power was clearly in the hands of a very small group of people, a very small minority. Nowadays, after a very long way, Belgium is a federal state which has 3 official languages based on the recognition of 3 communities. The 2 biggest ones, the Flemish community and the French-speaking community, and a much smaller one, the German-speaking community, which has approximately 70,000 people. And obviously, since 1948, when the women got the right to vote, we have had a full universal suffrage, and we elect through a proportional electoral system the members of the different parliamentary assemblies of Belgium, both at the level of the federal state and at the level of the entities. So Belgium has undergone a double process of democratization on the one hand, and of federalization and recognition of the language diversity on the other hand. This thorough transformation has requested throughout the last 187 years the adoption of many, many laws, as well as a series of revision of our constitution. So the text remains the constitution adopted in 1831, but modified. And this process of reforming the Belgian state happened exclusively, peacefully, through dialogue and agreements between the political forces of Belgium. It's not always easy. Sometimes it takes also time to reach agreements. And it happened within the parliament and in full respect of the constitution. So it has been a long process, very long process, and it's probably not achieved. And it seems grounded to believe that any state should adapt permanently to a changing reality, to a changing world, looking for the best structures. And from that point of view, I believe that we could think that any state is always in a process of state building, at least to a certain extent. I would now give you a very short presentation of the federal organization of the Belgian state. As I told you previously, Belgium is nowadays a federal state, which has 3 communities and also 3 regions. So it's a specificity of our federal system to have two parallel types of entities, the communities, which are based on the language, and the regions, which are based on the territory. And so the two types of entities coexist, and so the same municipality belong at the same time to one region and to one community, even two in the case of the municipalities of the Brussels region. From the point of view of the linguistic regimes, there are 4 linguistic regions, what we call the linguistic regions. So 4 different regimes. The bilingual region of Brussels capital. In that region, which belongs at the same time to the French-speaking community and to the Flemish community, Dutch and French are used. They are both official languages. We have the Flemish linguistic region, which is Dutch-speaking, the French-speaking linguistic region, and the German-speaking linguistic region. So, referring to the topic of our works today, and to your question, Mr. the Commissioner, there are in Belgium 3 bilingual parliamentary assemblies, 2 at the federal level. 2 at the federal level, so the House of Representatives and the Senate, and 1 at the level of the entities, which is the Parliament of the region of Brussels. Let's see now how these assemblies are organized and work. So when I stated earlier, all the parliamentary assemblies in Belgium are elected through a proportional system. Regarding their composition, 2 assemblies apply a system of guaranteed representation, so a system of guaranteed number of seats. At the federal level, the Senate, which has also necessarily 1 German-speaking member. We don't have the same system in the House of Representatives. And since 2014, the members of the Senate are elected by the parliaments of the entities. And so there is 1 senator who is German-speaking, 35 Flemish, and 24 French-speaking. And we have also a system of guaranteed representation in the parliament of the region of Brussels capital, with 72 French-speaking members and 17 Flemish members. And this is a guarantee, constitutional guarantee for the Flemish population of Brussels. Let's now have a look at the process, the legislative process in these 3 bilingual assemblies, and the principles and the working are basically the same. Regarding the language in which the texts are introduced, we should distinguish 2 situations. When the text is initiated by the government, so the federal government or the government of the region of Brussels, the government must introduce it, must submit it to the parliament in both languages, so in French and in Dutch, and it is immediately distributed to the members of the assembly in both languages. When the text is initiated by a member of the assembly, we call that a proposal. It is translated just after the president of the assembly or the bureau of the assembly has decided to take it into consideration. And immediately after the translation, the text is distributed to the members of the assembly in both languages. So Consequently, in both cases, the members of the Assembly receive immediately the text in both languages, Dutch and French, at the very beginning of the works of the Assembly. So this is a very important point, since from the very start, the legislative process is bilingual. As regards the discussion, the debate, it is also bilingual with a system of simultaneous interpretation, as well in the committees as in the plenary meeting of the Assembly. So every member can choose any of both languages, French or Dutch. The vote relates simultaneously on both linguistic versions. The law is adopted at the same time simultaneously in both languages, and the text is afterwards published in the official gazette, once more simultaneously in Dutch and French. And the law states that both texts have to appear on the same page. So in two columns. This is an example. So we have in the official gazette the two texts next to each other. French, in this case, French on the right and Dutch on the left. And probably, do we switch every year? Probably. So the publication is simultaneously in both languages. And obviously, both texts enter into force at the same moment, and they have strictly the same force, the same value. Regarding the possible discrepancies between the Dutch and the French text, these must be clarified based on the willingness of the legislative power, so following the usual methods of interpretation, and obviously without any precedence of one version over the other one. So the picture is very clear and simple. From the moment a project or proposal of law is put on the agenda of the Parliament and the legislative process starts, both linguistic versions strictly follow simultaneously the same path. Here, I would like to mention very briefly the role of the State Council, Conseil d'État, Raad van State. At a certain stage of the legislative process, that body, the State Council, gives an advice to the government and to the Parliament on the text. And at that stage, of course, the question of vocabulary, language, terminology can be checked by the State Council. So the role of the State Council regarding the language compliance is, of course, very useful and very important. So at this stage, you could be surprised because I've just spoken about Dutch and French, not yet about German. German spoken by 70,000 Belgian citizens, which are the German-speaking community. And indeed, the regime, the organization is not the same between French and Dutch on the one hand, and German on the other hand. As regards the federal parliament, which is bilingual in the federal laws, the proposals and projects of laws are not introduced, nor translated, nor discussed in German. I should add that because of the very small size and the very small population of the German-speaking community, we don't have always a German-speaking MP in the House of the Representatives. So there is also a practical reason for that situation. And but after the publication in French and Dutch in the official gazette, the laws are translated into German and published in the official gazette. One fact here is interesting. It's the role of the Constitutional Court of Belgium, because previously, till 20 slightly more than 20 years ago, only a limited number of laws were translated into German and published in German. And then the court decided that we should systematically translate the laws into German, so all the laws, and not only a limited number of laws. So the role of the Constitutional Court from that point of view is interesting. Obviously, the laws, the text adopted by the Parliament of the German-speaking community are fully discussed, introduced, discussed, debated in German and published in German, obviously. So the whole process happens in German. And also the laws of the Parliament of the Walloon region are translated into German, as the German-speaking community is a part of the territory of the Walloon region. So to summarize this point, which is the core of our works today, the whole procedure is bilingual, Dutch-French, in the House of Representatives, in the Senate, and in the Parliament of the region of Brussels capital. There is a translation afterwards of the federal laws and decrees of the Walloon region into German and publication in that language. And there is a unilingual process in all the other assemblies, which all are at the level of the entities in German, French, or Dutch. Now to end, referring and answering your question, Mr. the Commissioner. So the question you raised about the role of bilingualism in Kosovo for the process of European integration. First of all, I strongly believe that any country has to find the organization and the institutions which fit the best its own specificities, identity, based on the history, the population, the culture, and so on. And as we know, at least two articles of the Constitution of the Republic of Kosovo are relevant. Article 3, equality before the law, and Article 5, which states that the official languages are Albanian and Serbian, and that the Turkish, the Bosnian, and Roma languages have the status of official language at the municipal level, or will be in official use at all levels as provided by law. So, first of all, the point is that of the implementation of the Constitution of Kosovo. And obviously, this is a question of sovereignty, of citizenship, and also of empowerment. So, I mean, it's in the hands of the authorities and the people and the elected representatives of the population of Kosovo. What is said before the experience of Belgium shows that the Belgian model is certainly very complex, but it is unique and it works. And probably we didn't in Belgium apply the traditional, the usual models, the usual recipes, or the usual formulas, and but we based it on our situation, on our specificities. So I would say, don't hesitate to be creative, to create something new in building your own country, your own model, your own institutions. Now, to end, regarding the European integration path of the Republic of Kosovo, of course, multilingualism as a tool to strengthen the equality between citizens, the access to justice, the rule of law, the respect for minorities and for diversity, matches the core values and principles of the European Union. And so from that point of view, multilingualism can contribute to bring Kosovo and the European Union closer to each other. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ambassador, for this very thorough presentation of the Belgian model. Now we will switch to a short question and answer session. If there are questions for our speakers. Everyone is hungry, or please.
Mogu në albanskom? Mirdita, dobar dan, e i Günler. Ndoshta dikush, i nderuar i zotri ambasador Bratu, të nderuar ambasador panelist, të nderuar pjesëmarrës, unë përdu në emrin tim personal si deputet i Kuvendit Kosovës dhe kryetari Partisë Rome Bashkuar të Kosovës dhe në emrin të komunitetit tim Rom, të falenderoj organizatën për bashkëpunim dhe sigurinë Evropa OSBE për këtë takim jashtëzakonisht të rëndësishëm. Ndoshta dikush nga ju sigurisht që do të pyetet që për cilën arsye nuk ju përshëndeta në gjuhën rome. Është shumë e thjeshtë. Unë me kënaqësinë më të madhe po e them që kam deri dhe kënaqësinë që të vij nga një qytet i lashtë historik, nga qyteti i Prizrenit, nga një qytet i cili është i dalluar për diversitetin kulturor, për diversitetin etnik, fetar dhe gjuhësor. Mirë po, me keqardhjen më të madhe po më duhet të them që edhe duke u bazuar në Kushtetutën e Republikës Kosovës 105, e cila na jep për drejt, dhe po ashtu në ligjin për gjuhët zyrtare, neni 2.4, ku njëri nga kriteret cekët në mënyrë decisive që për një gjuhë në një komunë që tjetë në gjuhë në përdorim zyrtar, së paku duhet tjetë gjuhë tradicionale. Sa për informacionin tuaj, komuniteti Rom, tradita jonë është mbi 600 vjeçare në shtetin e Kosovës. Ne kemi shkrime, të cilat mujnë se se cilit nga ju me dorëzu, që nga viti 2006 kemi kërkuar nga institucionet në nivelin lokal, po ashtu nivelin qendror. Nuk e di se sa vite zotri Mladenović është komisioner për gjuhë, për shkak se nuk kam qenë pjesë e legislativit në 3 vitet e fundit. Mirë po, që nga viti 2007 kemi përcjell shkrime apo letra, apo më mirë themi kërkesa, edhe në nivelin qendror, edhe në nivelin lokal, sidomos në komunën e Prizrenit, ku jetojnë mbi 5.000 pjesëtar të komunitetit rom. Dhe duke u bazuar në nenin 2.4 të ligjit mbi përdorimin e gjuhëve zyrtare, ne kemi kërkuar që së paku në komunën e Prizrenit, ku jetojnë mbi 5.000 pjesëtar të komunitetit rom, që gjuha rome tjetë në jo gjuhë zyrtare, po gjuhë në përdorim zyrtar. Tani kjo ka ndodhur me kënaqësi, po e them, vetëm në komunën e Graçanicës, edhe pse ndoshta komuna e Graçanicës është edhe 10 herë më e vogël se komuna e Prizrenit, edhe me metër katror, po edhe me numër të banorëve. Mirë po, ka ndodhur kjo që ka ndodhur deri me tani. Ne mund të krenohemi si qytetar të Republikës Kosovës, që shteti ynë ka ndoshta ligjet më të mira në rajon, po edhe më gjerë, për shkak se çdo ligj është në përputhshmëri me aki komuniter apo me ato që kërkohet me standarde evropiane. Mirë po, për fat keq, ky ligj, i cili është jashtëzakonisht i rëndësishëm për ne, për komunitetin rom, ka met pa frym, ka met pa fjalë dhe ka met ende i zbatueshëm. Jemi në vitin 2017 dhe ende kjo në komunën e Prizrenit, ku jetojnë mbi 5.000 rom, nuk ka ndodhur dhe ende s'po ndodh përkundër kërkesave të vazhdueshme tona. Unë me kënaqësinë më të madhe e ndëgjova zonën ambasadore nga Finlanda, e cila me buzëqeshje dhe me kënaqësi e përmendi komunitetin rom, ku më bëri krenar që nga Finlanda e largët të ndëgjoj për komunitetin tim. Mirë po, për këtë buzëqeshje, zonja ambasadore kanë nevojë edhe pjesëtarët e komunitetit rom që të jenë së paku në aspektin gjuhësor të barabartë me të tjerët. Unë duke shpresuar që edhe nga ju panelistët, edhe nga ambasadorët, mirë po edhe nga gjithë ata njerëz që janë relevant dhe që mirën me çështjen e gjuhës, shpresoj që në të ardhmen e afërt, bile së paku në komunën e Prizrenit, qytetarët e komunës Prizrenit do të jenë ata që do të gëzojnë këtë drejt dhe në komunën tonë gjuha duke u bazuar në ligjin për gjuhët dhe mbi të gjitha mbi Kushtetutën e Republikës Neni 5, i cili flet për përdorimin e gjuhës zyrtare, që neve në komunën e Prizrenit ku jetojnë mbi 5000 pjesëtar të komunitetit rom, që edhe gjuha rome më në fund të jetë në përdorim në gjuhën zyrtare. Edhe një herë ju falenderit.
Hvala vam puno na komentaru. Prema našim saznanjima, grupa nevladinih organizacija, romskih nevladinih organizacija je tokom ove godine podnela zahtev Skupštini opštine Prizren za priznavanje romskog kao jezika u službenoj upotrebi. Mi se nadamo da će na taj zahtev biti pozitivno odgovoreno od strane opštine. Ja kažem o zvaničnom zahtevu koji je poslat ove godine. Ima li pitanja nekih? Urnoni?
Ju përshëndes se idealimi, por ndryshe ju ndëgjohë me vëmendje me të vërtet ne në Kosovë, sipas Kushtetutës së Kosovës folim dy gjuhë zyrtare, gjuha shqipe dhe gjuha serbishte. Por në kodrë të këtyne folën edhe shumë gjuhë tjera, si gjuha rome, gjuha turke dhe shumë gjuhë tjera. Me bëri me vëmendje zotriu i cili po e udhëheq, tha nuk po mësojmë gjuhën e njëri tjetrit. Unë e di se në gjeneratat e tona të mëparshme është mësuar gjuha serbishte nga klasa e tretë. Kështu që e kemi pas një përvojë bukur të madhe. Nga klasa e tretë obligative, kena mësuar gjuhën serbe. Kështu që e mësojmë gjuhën e njëri tjetrit, edhe do ta mësojmë gjithë një. Kështu që ne e mësojmë, por edhe të jetë duhet ta mësojmë gjuhën tonë. Besoj që në mënyrë ekuivalente. Ju falenderit.
Ja sam verovatno jedna od, unë jam supozoj njëra nga gjeneratet e fundit cilat kam pas gjuhë shqipe si land nga klasën e tretë, nuk kam mësuar shumë gjuhë në shkollë, por kur kam filluar me punu në Prishtinë, por besoj që çështja e mësimit të gjuhës është i vetmi zgjidhje afatgjatë dhe i sistematik, cila garanton jo vetëm komunikim ndëretnik, por edhe kapacitetet për administrat për afatgjat. Please, we have a question from Isabel from Council of Europe.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for this very good initiative. I'm Isabelle Servoz-Galussi from the Council of Europe. And for the actually translator, I'm saying Council of Europe, not European Council, as we heard earlier today, but I think that's one of the topics of the issue today. First of all, thank you very much. It was extremely interesting, and especially the panelists who have been chosen really represent different examples, successful, but also who clearly explain that it's not something that happened from one day to another. Even if in the case of Switzerland, the quite radicalism solution of imposing the knowledge of the 3 languages in Switzerland when you want to be a civil servant is something which is a bit radical, definitely, but might be a chance. For Kosovo, it's extremely interesting because you've got a very strong constitution. You also have very good legal tools currently applicable. Unfortunately, for those who've been here for a long time, we know that one of the main issues is about implementation, so going from words to action. That takes time and a lot of energy. You've seen here we are around believers, obviously, so we understand that knowing the languages and implementing the law is a must. And it's also part of all what we have to be doing together. And in this respect, we really have to push even more the authorities to go to the commitment. And here, the issue, the element which was brought by the Swiss ambassador is very clear. It shouldn't be a question also of money. Because, of course, without money, you cannot do anything. But, it shouldn't be the issue of implementing the laws and your legal obligation is not an issue of money exclusively. in that case, I mean, we wouldn't do anything. So here it requires from us even more perseverance and stubbornness, if I may say, on the positive sense, to make sure that the requirements are really in place. We are all working in this direction. Obviously, we need more. And I think that the examples given this morning are extremely interesting because in terms of size of country, I'm talking about size of country, we are representative, not for Canada, sorry, I mean of very small countries, but I mean to the European model, if you take the European model, definitely we have physically small countries and they have understood that to survive, they have to know the environment and they have to evolve in the environment. So this is also an appeal to openness, open-mindedness in this respect. So here, what we have, what my questions would be basically to all of you, it's not a question, it's a rhetorical question, but I mean, really, what else to be done, what model to be brought here to Kosovo to give hope in the philosophy, in the need of learning languages and avoiding, because we know that, and you know that also in your own countries, the fact that if you have a problem with the younger generation, we have to overcome the problems and avoiding that English becomes the vehicular language. Despite the fact that, of course, English is crucial, it's fundamental nowadays, it shouldn't be the vehicular language. And unfortunately, we all have in our own countries examples where it is becoming more and more relevant. So it's not necessary. First of all, you have to be able to talk the language of the neighbors, the physical neighbors, but also the geographical neighbors to understand your environment. So I would like to thank you again on this element and tell you that we in Council of Europe remain committed to assisting you, and we are doing that. And we work with the Language Commissioner quite closely and all of you. And definitely I hope that we can continue and push or put a lot of a bit more pressure on the authorities to go ahead and to go further. Thank you.
Would any of the ambassadors like to answer this rhetorical question? I would like to use the opportunity to thank Isabel for the really generous cooperation that we have with the Council of Europe and for the values we share, values expressed especially through the third and fourth opinion of the advisory committee. I hope that the commitment to learning of languages will show up in a greater extent in Kosovo, because this is very, very crucial. Please, Ambassador.
Okay, thank you for your question, and thank you also, Mr. Mladenovic. And well, you asked why is there a need to keep two official languages? And we have been talking about the need to understand neighbors and our neighborhood. And for Finland, having two official languages is also, it is deriving from our history, but in today's world, it is also having two official languages, and Swedish as one, giving us an element of being together at the Nordic community. There are 5 Nordic countries which share same values, Nordic welfare state, and language is also one very important medium to keep up these good contacts with the neighborhood. Not only one foreign language is enough, but this is another reason. Your neighbors and your neighborhood in a larger sense, that is what it gives us. And having two official languages, it is richness of culture. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now we are a little bit behind the schedule. I have the information that the Swiss Ambassador is on a really tight agenda. I would like to use this last minute of this conference today to thank the Ambassador Rasu and his colleagues from Language Portfolio and yes, Alvetar and Arzu and others, Sehadin, of course, all the community and Language Portfolio team for supporting the Office of Language Commissioner, but bringing this topic to the top of of the agenda in today's political circumstances. This is very, very important for us. Thank you everyone for coming and attending this conference. I would like to invite you in the name of the organizers to join us for lunch, which will be served downstairs on the ground floor in the restaurant. Thank you.